Hi, I'm Jack Shilley and welcome back to another garden update. I do apologise that it's been a while since I've done one of these. Work and home life and everything else in between has just been manic recently, but it's settled down again now, so I've managed to get myself out in the garden to spend a bit of time out here. And what I want to do is just bring you up to speed with everything that's changed and what's happening, because it's been a good few weeks since the last proper garden update, and there's been so much happened in that time. There's seedlings that have gone in, they've all started to germinate, things are really coming up on the patio and are starting to look really good. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you. Obviously, as I said, the weather is improving. Right now it's about 15 degrees, comfortable for me to be out here in my t-shirt. However, overnight we're unfortunately still having quite cold weather. The ground is freezing quite regularly overnight. It's down to -1, -2 degrees, which is not ideal. So lots of plants like this peony beside me here have flushed up all their nice growth, but we're having to fleece and bring them in, put them somewhere sheltered overnight to ensure that the frost isn't going to get to them. You'll see all the seedlings in the greenhouse. We're having to fleece them overnight, which is far from ideal. And whilst they're all coming up and they're all getting ready to get in the ground and we'll get excited for the growing season to start, we unfortunately can't put them out yet just because the ground is still freezing overnight. The weather forecast though does look like it's going to improve, and hopefully those overnight temperatures aren't going to dip below freezing, so fingers crossed for that. So just to start with, and here on the patio, as I said, things are really coming along. This peony here is one particular highlight that's looking really lush and green and healthy at the moment. This is Peony Bowl of Beauty. It's a beautiful peony, one of probably the most easily recognisable and most commonly found in garden centres. It has beautiful pink petals, big size flowers with white petals in the middle. It truly is stunning when it's in full flower. Unfortunately, one of the stems down here has been frosted, so I'm just going to cut that away in a moment. But otherwise it's looking really happy, really healthy, and there's lots of buds in here. Now with peonies, they are going to be quite tall. This is only in a small pot, so if it is in a container, make sure that it's weighted down so it's not going to blow over and damage the stems in the breeze. But you will also probably need to put in some canes and some plant supports to keep them looking their best. Beside me here, the sago palm has survived another winter. It's looking quite happy and healthy. The other plant down here, I'm not sure how well you can see, is a hydrangea. It's just starting to flush out, as you would expect if it's planted out in the garden. The shoots on it are about this big at the moment. You just want to be careful, as I said, with all of these plants with their new growth. If we are going to get a frosty night, it is worth pulling them in somewhere sheltered, somewhere covered, so that the frost isn't going to get to them, because you wouldn't want the frost to hurt all this nice growth ahead of them flowering later in the year. The one other plant I wanted to show you on the patio in this update that's looking particularly amazing, I'm very excited about, is this Toona sinensis. So this is Chinese mahogany. It is a very large tree if you plant it in the ground, very slow growing though, so if you do buy a small specimen like I purchased here a few years ago, it is going to take a long time for it to establish itself. I've got mine in a container, just because I want to keep it a little bit smaller and enjoy it on the patio. It seems to do very well, just make sure you keep it well fed and well watered. But just look at these beautiful, bright, pink, ready new growth that's come through. It's absolutely stunning. These will then eventually come out. They'll be quite long leaves, quite large, and they'll fade to a plain green. But what a stunning splash of colour for this time of the year. It looks fantastic out here on the patio, and it's catching the sun beautifully right now. There's a fantastic specimen at RHS Garden Wisley if you've ever been down there. At this time of year, it is a massive splash of bright pink colour in the middle of Battleston Hill. So do check that out if you are heading down to the RHS garden at Wisley in the next few weeks. Before we go into the greenhouse, I just wanted to show you how the Jostaberry is getting along. So obviously I planted this quite a while back, and whilst there was little bits of growth, it hadn't really started to properly grow yet. It's amazing to see over the last few weeks how well this has come on, and actually, despite my concerns about the soil being quite poor here in the veg pot, it does seem to be doing really, really well. We've got these big stems of healthy, vigorous growth. The veg patch has actually dried out quite nicely, and the soil, okay, is still a bit clumpy and there's big bits of clay in it, but actually is quite malleable now, which is great. And it's really reassuring for me to see this doing well. Unfortunately, the raspberries that I planted back in the first garden update that we did don't seem to have fared so well. So over the next couple of weeks I will be pulling those out. I'll be purchasing some more and I'll be replacing those now that the soil is in a better condition. But just wanted to give you a quick update on that and just to show you how great the plant is looking. I'm excited to try the fruit later in the year. So as I said, we're still having cold temperatures overnight, so I am having to fleece the seedlings that we've started in here. I'm quite pleased with the germination and success rates. Unfortunately, some haven't germinated, and that will be down to using older seeds. So the sweet peas that I sowed a few weeks back, they haven't come up, but those seeds did expire 3 or 4 years ago, so their viability has dropped quite a lot within that time. It's a shame, and it's worth obviously giving these things a go, but obviously it hasn't worked this time, so I'll be buying some fresh seed and resowing those shortly. So I'm just going to remove the fleece on here, and as you can see, things are looking pretty good. You can see there's a lot going on. Pumpkins that I sowed only a week or so ago have come up beautifully. These pumpkins here are white pumpkins, ghost pumpkins. I harvested them from the pumpkin that I carved last Halloween. So the seeds have come through beautifully. We've got a few of those on the go. There's still a few more just poking their heads through the soil. What else have we got? The pea seeds early onward that I sowed with you in my video a few weeks back are now starting to look really good. Again, relatively decent germination on those, but there's a few gaps where they just haven't come through, unfortunately. That's probably because they've sat a bit damp in here when the weather's been cooler, and they just haven't dried out properly, so the seeds have probably rotted away, but still a good number of plants there. And again, about a week and a half ago, I sowed some climbing beans. They've come through really well. Obviously they need a bit more time to stay in the warm and to definitely stay protected from the frost, so I'm going to give these probably another 2 or 3 weeks. Probably pop them on into some deeper pots too, to get them really established and looking nice before they go into the ground. I've then also sown some early lettuce, which has come up in this tray here. What I'm going to do with these is again probably give them another few days, probably the other side of the weekend just coming up, and I will then plant them straight into the veg patch so they can grow out and establish in there. I'll prick them out one by one and I'll do a video to show you what I'm doing and get those in the ground, but they've come up really well. Lots of lettuce plants there. My broccoli hasn't started to germinate yet, unfortunately. I'm hoping that it's going to come through. Again, this is an old seed that I'm using in here, so I'm not holding out much hope, but there's always a chance. It can be slightly slow to germinate, so I'm just giving it the benefit of the doubt. It's only been in about a week, so we'll wait and see what happens. But looking good in here. There's a few things like the sweet peas and my ipomaea haven't come up yet. Looking at getting some fresh seed in for them imminently. But as I said, at the moment it is just a bit too cold for them to go outside into the veg patch. It does need another week or two just so that we can be sure that these overnight frosts that we're getting aren't going to come in and just kill the whole lot. So while they're in here, they're protected by the greenhouse structure itself. I'm fleecing them to give them double protection, and they've been thriving so far. So I'm going to carry on with that, and by the time that the frosts have gone, we'll have big, strong, healthy plants ready to go straight in the ground and get growing. The other plants that I've got that you saw me sow way back are also doing really well. These are my Brussels sprouts. So these went in, we're coming on for 2 months ago now. They were slightly slow to germinate. Again, that'll be the cold coming through, but I've potted them on into these larger individual pots and they're really doing quite well. I've probably got maybe a dozen of them down here, happily growing away. They will need to go into the ground soon, so of all the plants in the greenhouse at the moment, these Brussels sprouts are going to be the first ones that do go into the soil, and it'll be interesting to see how they fare with the soil perhaps not being as nice as it could be in the first season. So it'll be a little bit of trial and error with those, but they're also doing fantastically well and have come up brilliantly. So that's it for this week's garden update. There is just so much happening out in the gardens at the moment. You can see the seedlings are coming through. It's a really exciting time to be up and out in the garden and starting to get growing. It's a shame about the temperatures, unfortunately, overnight, but it's one of those things that we as gardeners have to unfortunately just deal with. I'm not going to put in my tomatoes or cucumbers or anything like that at the moment, just because they do need that extra bit of warmth overnight to ensure they get the best germination rates. So that will come in the next week or two, and obviously I'll be taking videos of those and showing you what I'm doing to get those ready and to get the best out of those seeds that I'm sowing. As I said, I will hopefully be back on track releasing these videos a bit more regularly now. Beautifully sunny during the day, light in the evening, so I've got a lot more time to spend in the garden, and I'm very lucky that I've been able to amass a collection of all kinds of different plants, and I'm growing all kinds of different veg, and we're very lucky to have the space to do that. So hopefully through these videos I'll be able to continue sharing with you my top tips and hints on how to get the best from your garden too. I'm going to bring you along for the journey. As I said, there's going to be a lot of trial and error too, just because it's a new build garden, the ground is quite poor, and I'm really interested to see how that pans out. So with that in mind, do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on those future garden updates. I'll be dropping other videos in the mix, like my top picks for container plants like I did a few weeks ago as well, so hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of that. All my social links are in the box below too, so you can keep up to speed with what's happening in the garden and outside of the garden too if you want to. But as I said, that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one.